you please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask our city clerk, Ryan Schofelt, to do roll call.
Harrington?
Here.
McKinney?
Here.
O'Doherty?
Here.
Pierce?
Here.
Schuster?
Here.
Stalder?
Here.
Weaver, absent. Gabriel?
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
That's 8 present, 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we have public comments, and you have anyone that would like to can come up and speak on any topic. You have 3 minutes. If you come up, give us your name, and then we'll start the clock. And you're welcome to come up at this time. Seeing no one rushing to the podium, we'll close public comment and move to the next item. And I'd ask our Vice Mayor Gabriel if he would take us through consideration of changes in the agenda and/or setting the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we set the agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that agenda now is set. We don't have any proclamations, and so we're going to move next to, and we have no public hearings, so we'll move to announcements. I believe we have a couple. City Manager.
We do. Mayor, we have 2 announcements. First from Public Works.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, just want to give you a quick announcement on this year's Christmas tree pickup and recycling program. Volunteers from the Laramie Knights of Pythias, Laramie High School Rodeo Club, Laramie Rangers Baseball, Snowy Range FFA, Wyoming Technical Institute, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars will provide free pickup of your Christmas tree on January 11th. They ask that you have it out at the curb by 9 a.m. They will hit the entire town that day. The trees will eventually go to the landfill and will be used in the compost program. No tinsel, lights, tree stands, any of that stuff. Clean trees. Residents, if they can't get it out that day or something happens, they can always take it out to the landfill free of charge, and the tree will also go into the compost program there. As we get closer to the event, we'll push out a press release and get some information out on social media and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, second announcement from the Assistant City Manager's Office, Parks and Rec.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, a couple announcements related to the holidays with Parks and Recreation is, first off, this Saturday, December 21st, from 4 to 7 at the Ice and Event Center. Free skating and refreshments at our Skate with Santa event. This is a very popular event where we get between 400 and 600 folks to come out, so make sure and check it out this Saturday. And then related to some closures for the city buildings on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, the Rec Center and Ice and Event Center will be open until 4 p.m. on those days. So we'll still be open and providing services on those days until 4 p.m. and then we'll be closed on December 25th and 1/1 of 20. Okay.
Thank you. Is that all of our announcements? Okay, thank you. This time, ask if there's anyone on the City Council that has any items they would like to have disclosures on conflicts that they may have on any items on the consent or regular agenda.
Mayor, I do.
Councilor Harrington.
I have business relationships with the parties concerned in 9K and item 11,
Okay,
so I will recuse from those.
anyone else? Okay, back to the Vice Mayor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that the consent agenda be approved, that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilor Pierce. Could we have roll call?
Pierce?
Here. Yes. Sorry.
You're a yes.
Stalder?
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes, and recusing from 9K.
Okay. McKinney.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Weaver, absent. Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses,
Okay, so
0
the
noes.
consent agenda has been approved, and now we move to our regular agenda. And to introduce this item, I'm going to ask Counselor Pierce if you would introduce item number 11.
Wow, we didn't do assignments.
We didn't,
So,
but you're a veteran. Oh, is that yours, Vice Mayor?
Could be.
Let's do that.
That
Can we
would
do
make-
that, Counselor Pierce?
yeah, it's totally fine.
That's his, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was actually thinking he should do it.
He should.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that Resolution 2019-86, supporting the Laramie Plains Civic Center Joint Powers Board transfer of the Laramie Plains Civic Center to the Laramie Plains Civic Center, Inc., a nonprofit charitable corporation, and thereafter authorizing the termination of that Joint Powers Board.
Second.
And authorize.
And authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Is that okay with the second?
And I'll second.
Without objection, it's been moved and seconded. So, to introduce this, we have our city attorney, Mr. Southard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the culmination of about a 2-year project. Here in the audience, we have Mr. Eric Sandine, who's the chair of the Joint Powers Board and has been for quite some time. We also have Aaron Tomasich, who's the attorney was for the foundation and now for the 501c3 that's been set up by the foundation to take possession of the Laramie Plains Civic Center. So they're going to have probably more information if detailed questions come up about the operation of the Civic Center or about this transaction, which is fairly simple. Some of you here, or all of you, may know more about the Civic Center than I do. I sketched out the history of it in the cover sheet. Essentially, it's been a school since 1878, and things were added to it over the following 40 or 50 or 60 years. But finally, the school district was done with using it as a school. So the county and the city, and by the way, when I speak about we or what we're up to, I'd like to include the county in that, because the county's been a partner in this throughout. The county commissioners today passed a resolution exactly like the one, I don't know the wording, but exactly to the effect that you're being asked to pass tonight. So I don't mean to pretend that this is purely a city operation. The county has worked with this ever since. So what the city and county did when the school district said in 1978, I think, we're not going to operate this as a school anymore. We have a big historic building in the middle of one of our old neighborhoods, and the city and county said, we will form a joint powers board. That joint powers board is a separate entity. It will take over the Laramie Plains Civic Center for the purpose of preserving that building, bettering the building if it can, and turning its space to public purposes to help the city and county. So for 40 years, the Joint Powers Board has been doing that. And the Joint Powers Board has had great success at doing that. I gave you links in your cover sheet to its current roster of tenants, which has all the way from artists to churches to nonprofits, you name it, and then also links to the public spaces it has and has been successful with, from the Griffin Theater to studio space to the gyms or ballrooms that are available for public use. And so they've made it a great success, focused on that part of Laramie and Albany County that finds it hard to find space, that finds it hard to have good, low-cost public spaces. That's been supported, I should say, by the taxpayers a couple of times over these 40 years. As I said in your cover sheet, I think in 2001, for our specific purpose tax, 6 penny, out of the city's share went $410,000 to revamp the heating system, the boiler there. In 2010, out of the 6 penny tax that went to the county directed 400,000 of that to pay off a loan that the Civic Center had to the state. So certainly the taxpayers have contributed, that's $810,000 over these 40 years. But largely, for the last couple of decades, this has been a self-supporting enterprise. So then, as it gets better, its operation gets better through the hard work of the Joint Powers Board and a couple of great executive directors. They have a project that they need to improve the building and expand it. And so they do what all organizations do when you're operating a big building: go to the bank and get a loan. They got good legal advice on that. They took out a mortgage on that building and used that money to improve the building. In 2000, that was about 2015 is when that loan was finally refinanced. A year later, the Attorney General gave an opinion I don't necessarily agree with, but lawyers do disagree, gave an opinion that a Joint Powers Board cannot mortgage property. But still, the mortgage sits there. So the important thing is that closes off future normal financing for this building, the most normal financing being bank loans. Second, what the Joint Powers Board has found is that when it applies for private grants that would normally be available for this kind of community space, those granting agencies say, well, wait a minute, you're a governmental organization. You should be getting massive amounts of cash from the city council or the county commissioners. Well, that's not possible. They try to explain, we're not really a governmental organization, but they can't get those grants. So the financing looks difficult in the future, preserving and expanding and keeping this as a good asset for Laramie. So with that, a couple of years ago, the Joint Powers Board came, along with the foundation, to both council and the county commissioners and said, can we explore getting this turned over to a private 501c3 charitable organization? They can take control of the Civic Center now that it's in good shape, and they'll be able to seek that financing that we cannot. So this council, or the previous council, and I also updated this council, said, yes, please, you, city attorney, work with them to see if you can make this happen. The county commissioner said the same thing. Said, county attorney, you work with them to see if we can make this happen. I think through the good offices of the Joint Powers Board, with their attorneys, who started with Jody Shea and it's now Greg Weiss, have worked very hard to both get an entity set up that will be tax exempt. The IRS had to take about 14 months to tell them that that would be okay, and then to get this transaction together. Aaron Tomasich has been in it from the beginning, and I thank him very much for his efforts, which have been really remarkable. So we come here before you today asking for a resolution to approve the Joint Powers Board conveying everything to this private 501c3 charitable organization, which will now run the Civic Center for charitable purposes. That's what the IRS required from them, is that it has to be run as a civic center, defined as for the good of the community, targeting the kinds of tenants they're targeting, making available the spaces that they have for community betterment. So that's where we are. Questions for me? And I'd also like certainly Mr. Sandin to speak too.
Okay, first of all, thank you for all the work that you've done and everyone else that's been working on this for so long. Any questions from anyone on the council? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comments? Dr. Sandin?
I should have said doctor. I didn't. I said mister the whole time.
I want me to examine you, that's fine. That'll be big money. Hi, I'm Eric Sandin. I'm the chairman, I guess the last chairman of the Joint Powers Board of the Laramie Civic Center. And I guess it falls to me to give a kind of valedictory, not a post-mortem, but a valedictory for the organization, and to point out the obvious, that this is a unique building in Wyoming, maybe even in the Mountain West. It's right at the heart of the community. It grew with the community, and now what goes on inside supports the community. It's a place where nonprofit organizations can find a home. And as an example of that, I would just point to Laramie Interfaith, who was in that organization was in the building for probably 40 years in one form or another, incubated its services, and then moved out because they had developed to a point where they could have their own building and expand and become the kind of statewide recognized organization that they are today. I want to acknowledge at this time, I don't want to sing the history of the building, but I do want to acknowledge people like Matilda Hanson, who some of us are long enough of tooth to remember back in the 70s, who was instrumental in landmarking the building and making it a part of the National Registry of Historic Structures in the United States. And I think honoring that tradition, honoring that historic status, has been a part of our responsibility as a Joint Powers Board from the get-go. We've always had that historic preservation angle in mind. Just look at the list of tenants in that building and you'll see the incredible variety of things that go on in there. It really is a remarkable structure, and I want to thank all of the people who served on the Joint Powers Board, the executive directors over the years that I've been associated with it, and also the goodwill and contribution of the city and the county in making this place absolutely unique. So we're looking forward to the next step in the evolution of the Laramie Civic Center, and I know that the city appreciates what a remarkable center this building represents. So that's what I have to say. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Sandin? I want to make one comment. You mentioned Interfaith recently has moved to a new building because they found something that was much larger and had a greater capacity for all the things that they're doing. In their board meeting this morning at 8 o'clock, their biggest concern in that meeting was the new facility is still not big enough. And they're moving on, they're doing great things. So anyway, that's just an idea of what you said, incubation of many groups of individuals.
It's amazing because when it changed, when it got its new building, it expanded its mission to fit the building. And that's how organizations grow, and that's how that place became great.
Yes, and Vice Mayor Gabriel, you have been their representative from the council liaison for years, and I'm sure you have things that you'd like to say.
Well, first off, Eric, thank you for your service and all of the board members. Kim Middlestat is now the executive director. She's in the audience tonight too. She's been newly appointed, and wish her the very best. But there's been, like you said, a long history, and this is kind of a tender moment for some of us to see this transition now. But I mean, it's still going to be a great building, and I also wanted to recognize Don Streeter, who for 25 plus years was the executive director, and he kept that Civic Center, afloat. And then Alex Shea came in and really got things going again with the new windows, and got some grants, and really pushed the Civic Center and the theater and the development of the theater. It's really come around. So, and then Bob, thank you. You were always there when we, on behalf of the council, thank you for all of the ups and downs that you had to go through to make this happen. It's been quite a process, certainly. And again, Eric, thank you.
And thank you, Pat, for being our liaison during these last several years and giving us such good advice.
Counselor Schuster.
And a comment. You've done a great job. Thank you very much. I'm kind of the really local person here and love Laramie history. If you can see the picture of the original building, it was absolutely beautiful. Been here long enough, and I am old enough that was the junior high when I attended junior high. So I was in that building for the 3 years of junior high for moving on to the high school, which is no longer here, which is too bad because it was a beautiful building too. But lot of good memories in there, a lot of good memories.
And you know a building is important when people can tell stories about it. And you get people together talking about the Civic Center, and it becomes the junior high school, or maybe before that, the high school, if you're really old. And it just means something, and that's important to a community like this.
And we laugh about it, and I don't know if the story is true, but in the original gym, which had been on the north side, they said that a horse thief was hung by his thumbs until he told where the rest of the gang was. And that had been in your late 1800s. And I always wondered if that story was true or not.
That's really close to a Big-Nosed George story. I don't know. That's
When you were a kid, it was kind of cool.
yeah.
Is that it? Back to our Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. One other thing I just thought about, one of the highlights when I was a board member for the Civic Center was the dedication of the North Gym, Kenny Saylor's Gymnasium, where he took his first competitive jump shot. And he came and we had a wonderful ceremony. The documentary people were there to make, a story of his life. And, he was there to talk about the history of the Civic Center and that particular gymnasium, and it was quite a night. Thank you.
Very cool.
Another thing that the Laramie High School, which obviously, has moved. The building was the high school, was the junior high, and then we had the old high school, which was our new high school, and then back to the high school. We have developed an outstanding swimming program, and I will say this, it didn't start at the Civic Center, because that pool was only in use, one day? Before they found out that it was unusable.
It's better for spelunking than for swimming.
Going down and do some cave explorations, but anyway, not many people have been down to see the swimming pool I have. It's a nice landfill.
It was a wrestling room when I was there.
It was, yeah. And anyway, there's caverns that you can find in that historic building. It's a great place, and so much renovation, so much, bringing it up to where it has more and more uses, and I'm sure they'll continue to do so. Anyone else has any questions for Dr. Sandine or anyone else that's here? Any comments from anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak? Okay. Nothing else from the council. Let's go to roll call.
Okay. O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington,
Recused?
McKinney,
Yes.
Weaver, absent. Pierce,
Yes.
Stalder,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
and Shumway.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, 1 absent.
Okay, so the lone item on our regular agenda has been discussed, and we have passed that. So now we move back to public comments. Again, thank you all for being here. If there's anyone that'd like to get up, we missed somebody?
No.
Okay. If there's anyone here that would like to make any public comments, you have 3 minutes.
I gave him a public comment if he'd like to make it.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to
All right.
make a public comment?
Yes, sir.
You're welcome to. You can just stay right here.
Okay, good, because Laramie Rifle Range will be open on December 28th from 10 a.m. to noon, free of charge.
2 o'clock.
Oh, it says.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I see that. Till, you mixed it in there. Yeah, till 2 p.m., okay. Free of charge to the public.
Thank you for that.
If somebody gets a Christmas gift and would like to try it out, they said they always do that every year.
That's cool.
All right.
Good idea.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close public comment period. And then now we go to consideration for future council work session topics. Is there anyone on council that has any topic that they would like us to consider for a future work session? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to Councilor Pierce, and if you'll take item 14.
Okay, I move that we adjourn to executive session regarding litigation, Wyoming statute 16-4-405, small letter A, Roman numeral 3, and land negotiations, Wyoming statute 16-4-405, lowercase a, Roman numeral 6.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning to executive session indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Also,